Hey there, I just wanted to drop in and do a little intro for the next 2 episodes because they're a bit different from our normal format. We decided to do a podcast episode on the dangers of health and wellness gurus because I think it's a really important topic right now. Like no other time in history, we are being inundated by influencers for everything from diet, exercise, clothing, even mental health. We used to rely solely on doctors, therapists, or clinicians to get guidance about our most critical health and wellness decisions. Some have now swung the pendulum clear over to the other side to trusting TikTok and Instagram influencers to dictate every choice. Now, some of them are brilliant at self-promotion and marketing, and therefore seem very legit and trustworthy. And while they may be great content creators, they may not be the best authority on a subject. It's not all necessarily bad. In fact, I think doctors, physicians, therapists were given too much power in the past, which set up some dangerous dynamics. The real answer is where we put our power and what's driving those subconscious choices. Is it our informed, aligned intuition and embodied intelligence, or is our trauma leading the way? I think for many, it's trauma. And this leads us into compromising relationships with possibly dangerous people. In this episode, I share very personally about my own experience of getting wrapped up in a toxic environment with a wellness guru. I share this story for a couple of reasons. One, to help people understand that unhealed trauma or maladaptive subconscious programs can lead us into dysfunctional and even dangerous environments if we're not aware. I have never spoken of my experience publicly before. I've worked very hard to cut any ties with the organization that I was formerly involved with. For many years, and to this date, this individual and some of his followers have been reluctant to let me go, harassing me, my family, my business, and other people that I've collaborated with. I believe this is why more people haven't spoken out or stood up to him, as well as making it very clear that he's operating purely out of ego and control. I've made the very firm decision not to reveal his identity or to name his company. I'm not interested in gossip, slander, or defamation, but more importantly, I would never want to be the cause for someone to be exposed to this person or their methods. I know that some of you will be very tempted to do a little research and find this person, and I get it. I really do. But I would humbly ask that you refrain, because bringing more attention to this person is the last thing he needs. The more that I've healed, the more I realized that a very particular type of person is drawn to him and what he's teaching. They're likely very suggestible and quickly become ensnared in his narcissistic web. Like many other dangerous gurus or coaches, a lot of what they're saying sounds really good. But I believe that people seeking true healing, mind, body, and spirit, will likely never find him or will see him for who he is and run away. Another goal of this episode is to help explain my role and personal responsibility in staying in a situation for much longer than I ever should have. That ignoring red flag after red flag was revealing a part of me that needed healing. And finally, another reason for this episode is that we within Mind Change have been making every effort to cultivate and maintain safety and integrity within the Mind Change community, especially as a result of my experiences. Another goal of this topic is to point out some of the internal programs or narratives that are more susceptible to unhealthy or toxic gurus, as well as some of the red flags that I ignored. Though I hadn't intended on getting as deep into my personal story as I did in these episodes, we really value authenticity in the Mind Change community, so we decided to keep the episodes as raw as they came out. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Enjoy the episodes. Welcome back to the Mind Change Podcast. I'm your host, Heather McKean, and joining me today for today's episode is Kent McKean and McKenzie Brewster. So welcome back again.
Thanks.
Regulars on the Mind Change Podcast. Today we are talking about the dangers of health and wellness gurus.
Also a little bit different than how we normally do things because we don't usually go in at the danger point. You know what I mean?
No, right? We're not like danger.
Right.
Yeah, but, and again, it's not to make it scary.
Right.
It's really to make it, it's an awareness thing.
Yeah.
It's an awareness thing. And this comes from a particular hobby of mine.
Yes. Okay, so we were at dinner the other week and with a group of friends and ended up talking about a documentary. You had just been watching a series, Twin Flames, right?
Escaping the twin flame universe.
Yes. And it is so fun with you because regularly, you like learning how people work. Mm-hmm. Like the emotional drivers behind illnesses, how we can better care for ourselves. But in that, you also from time to time will watch things from the news, documentaries, and particularly cults and cult leaders.
And serial killers.
And serial killers. That's right. Serial killers, psychopaths. And you're like, okay, I get it. I understand why they're doing what they're doing. Like, how can I break this whole thing down?
Love it.
Heather has a lot of compassion and understanding and holds space for those people, even in the terrible things that happen and that they do.
I know, like one of my future books, Jeffrey Dahmer, why he ate people. Like, I get it. It makes sense to me when I watch these things. And so I love that. I like to watch these documentaries. And man, Netflix is cranking them out.
Yeah, there have been a lot more lately.
Yeah. It's there's a lot out there. That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I'm in one sense excited about, is that they're shining a light upon this industry, and it is a place where there is a propensity, or this is kind of like an easy way for this to happen.
Okay.
I feel like health and wellness, because I think most of us are familiar with religious cults, right? That's kind of usually a cult has a religious connotation to it, which it doesn't always. But there's particular, to me, it's programs. There are signs. It fits a profile.
When you say program, what do you mean by that?
It's kind of like it's like a computer program is what I mean.
Okay.
It's like you type in the right code, and this is what's going to naturally happen. So when I talk about programs, I'm usually talking about something that was input or coded in as a child, and we continue. It's a mode of operation that we use, and we tend to get stuck in them. And then we apply them in a lot of different areas of our life.
Okay, so when you say coded in, can you give me an example of that?
Well,
like
for
coded
instance,
into a child?
I'm going to use an example for people who tend to get wrapped up in these sort of things. If as a child, you were raised in the environment of don't trust yourself, you're a child, how could you know anything? Probably if you're going to make a decision, it's going to be wrong. You need to trust the adults, the authorities. What I say goes. That sets the stage. That's a program. That's coding for that. There's an authority figure out there who probably knows more than you do, definitely knows more than you do, because what could you know about you? And therefore you need to find those people to tell you about you, to tell you how to do the right thing. Think the right things, do the right things. That's what you need.
Can I ask you a question? So we said that there's been a lot more documentaries coming out, a lot more light being shed on this stuff. But is this a new thing?
Oh, heavens, no. I think there's been sects and cults and groups like this for
rituals and
for sure. People are seeking. Here's you want a bottom line secret? People want to belong. They want to belong. This comes from a wound, a belonging wound, an abandonment wound. There's something wrong with me. We're looking for safe people. We're looking for like-minded people. We're looking for people who we can be ourselves with, who get us, who understand us, partially because we don't understand ourselves. So we're actually outsourcing a little bit. We're looking for why we do the things we do. And so we're trying to find like people that are like us, because so many of us feel out of sorts. I think that's because we're really just disconnected from our bodies, which you're going to hear me say a million times. How can you feel like you fit in anywhere if you and your body aren't connected?
It's like this attachment wound that is just like manifested tenfold collectively.
Huge. Yeah. We're all suffering from de-connection, right? Like a lack of connection, like detached from self, detached from safe, family structures, detached from community. And we're seeking this out.
And so we outsource.
We outsource, right? We're designed for that. It's not happening in the ways that it used to. So we're looking for that outside of us.
Okay.
So we're way more predisposed in this current day and age with all that we're carrying in our own minds and bodies, but also epigenetically, as this stuff has not gotten dealt with. And now we're here.
It's like it's trauma, building upon trauma, building upon trauma.
Yeah.
Because it hasn't been dealt with for X number of generations,
yeah,
whatever it is, and then it compounds.
Right, which makes it worse. Doesn't mean it wasn't always there. There has
Right.
always been people that people followed. And
yeah, this is as old as time.
It's old as time, right? But I do think it's more and more and more. And we're seeing that represented in these cult documentaries, which I just love. But they're sad. And every time you watch these things, I don't know, for me, every time I watch them, I'm like, come now. How could you not have seen that? How could you not know that was wrong? How could you have participated in that and not heard that and questioned that?
Okay, how do you think?
Yeah, I've been this person.
Yeah, so I'm curious because, you've alluded to at times being engaged with, not engaged to.
Secrets.
People or organizations where you felt like you started to recognize modes of operating, behavior practices where you're like, ooh, I don't feel great about that. And I'd like to do something different. But how much are you willing to talk about some of that experience that you've walked through?
Yeah, I mean, hey, what better time, right? than to talk about it. I think that I'm willing to share my experience in detail.
Okay.
Because I think it could help other people. What I don't feel willing to do is share the name, because I'm not in the business of trying to, this was my lived experience. Mm-hmm. This is and I know it's a lot of other people's experience with this particular entity as well, but I'm not trying to drag anybody under. I'm not trying to vilify anybody, even though that was done to me. Mm-hmm. Like I get what's happening with these people. Here's another commonality with this. These are what I like to call unhealed healers.
Okay.
This can be in church communities as well, right? I really believe the majority of these people get into this with good hearts.
And when you, just to clarify for our audience, when you talk about get into this, you're talking about someone who ends up becoming some sort of a health and wellness guru or whatever, get into the healing world, the wellness world, the whatever, because they want to help people. Sure. Yeah. Like there's a genuinity there of they want to help because they want help themselves.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Well, a lot of people, this is well known within the field of psychiatry, and psychotherapy.
Oh, yeah. I know where we're going.
People get into this because they're trying to figure themselves out. Yeah. Or some really crazy stuff happened and they're like, well, how do people tick? And why do people... I'm probably wired a little bit that way, right? Of what I wanted to get involved in because I like to understand why people do what they do. Mm-hmm. It just scratches an itch for me personally. Uh-huh. And I do think that that's very common in these fields, in these helper fields, in these healer fields.
Mm-hmm. Or even religious fields at times.
And religious fields too. You want so badly to have and give and share. And if you feel like you've found a little bit of something that makes sense to you, you want to share it with the world, right? I do believe the majority of people who end up in these kind of cult leader status or, guru statuses that end up not being in the best place. I do believe that's how they started.
From a place of good desire, let's say.
Of wanting to help people.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that.
So then what happens, what develops where there's a shift there, or is there something seated underneath all along? Like, how does that go from this genuine thing of wanting to help people into something else?
So one of the things that I've seen with cult leaders.
Can we define cult a little bit more?
Yeah, that's okay. I know this is an entire degree that you can get and study, and you can.
Right, they're experts.
There are experts in this, and they have definitions. And so I am an armchair hobbyist as far as this stuff goes. So my definition of a cult would be where you are giving your power over your own sovereignty, your autonomy over to a person, where they or an organization where they have more authority over your decisions, your body, your way of being than you do. So oftentimes what these people will do was they will highlight, they will find what you are lacking, and they will say, I can give it to you. And I have the power to give that to you. And to get that thing is you need to give me complete authority. I have the answer to your deepest thing, the thing you want the most. I have it.
Okay, so with that, backing up to the kind of person that becomes this, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about that, because again, if they start out genuine and they start out like, I want to help people, I want to help me, I want to help whatever, the world, when does it shift into I have what you need? Because there has to be a point where they at least find like this idea of I've found the answer, right? Like this is the answer. And yet it's not just like, oh, I found an answer. It's more like a secret answer, right? So where does all that go?
So I think that one of the things that I've personally noticed in the case studies that I have followed through these documentaries and then some personal experiences, if I like to look back and put the pieces together. One of the things that I've noticed is the majority of these people come from trauma themselves.
Okay.
They come from some sort of background that was very difficult in their own unique way. And they oftentimes weren't able to get out of it. But then they become an adult, and then they're still wrestling with this and figuring something out, and then they figure out the thing that they would have wanted or needed. Now, I think what misses is they don't actually give it to themselves. Wow. So someone was generally had power over them in some way. There's various types of trauma this could be, but someone had power over them. Someone held something. It could have been love, could have been a mother who's, love and attention and nurturing the child wanted so badly, but for whatever reason, the mother withheld or wasn't able to or didn't have it for herself to give. So you've got this child that is just wounded deeply. They look at them and say, what's wrong with me? Why didn't mom love me? And they go through all these things and they get that knowledge of I needed someone to rescue me, someone to do this, someone to give me the attention, the nurturing, the whatever in this way. They know that.
So they, coming from a trauma background, wounded, fundamentally, there's a fundamental need that they have that has been unmet, love in some way. And then they get older and they figure out.
They recognize that wound, or they may not know how to say it exactly, but they get the idea of what I really needed was this.
The love,
the attention, the nurturing, the whatever it is.
All right.
But rather than actually do the work and give it to themselves,
like going back and like in their mind, in their body, in their spirit, like healing that trauma, essentially the point where it came from.
They start looking for other people who have the same wound to become the giver of. Now see, it's instead of being the child, they become the mother.
Now, just to, as a little parenthesis there, this is subconscious.
Yes.
Right.
Nobody's thinking through this,
people,
sitting down.
No,
like,
but that's important. Like,
yes.
People aren't like, now I can give it to people and this is how I'm going to do it. It's just, it's their programming.
It's like they recognize the unmet need that they had, and instead of getting it to themselves, it's like some part of them really wants and needs that thing. But instead of them going and giving it to themselves, they're like trying to give it to themselves, but it's in somebody else.
Well, they're trying to take the position of power.
Okay, because that's where the breakdown was for me. Okay.
So instead of healing the little child,
yeah,
they get into being the mother. And to heal themselves, they start trying to give to others, be the mother that they never had.
Because they lost their power as a child or didn't have it or whatever. And so now they're like, I need that. So they're trying to find it, but they find it through trying to help other people.
But they end up adopting the role that they were the receiving end on, where there is that power over, there is that withholding.
Right.
So now they are reenacting what had happened, like basically taking the role of their own abuser, but now they feel more in control and powerful because they can hold that position.
Yes, and this makes it so hard for them to let go.
And because it was never resolved in them,
yes,
this will become a cycle where it's never resolved in anyone else they're with.
Yes.
And so it will continue to escalate.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And you see this. Oh, I'm going to just name drop a few documentaries, okay, right?
Go for it.
So Wild Wild Country, it's the one about Osho. He's like a Hindu, I believe, okay, guru. And man, things got crazy in that.
Okay.
Like, and so what tends to happen is they find fellow wounded people, but now I can give you the answer. I've got the answer. But again, like you guys noticed, they just recreate the thing. So now they've got all these, there's many wounds this can happen, but I'm just picking the mother wound here as an example.
Okay.
And so now you've got all of these devoted children doing anything to get your love and attention. They'll do anything. They'll do anything for you to get the love and attention that you would have wanted from your mother if you're this guru, right?
But all you know, the guru, is what was given to you.
Which is
so
the
that's
withholding.
Which is what you then give, is the withholding. You give the withholding.
So you get a certain level of hit from receiving the love that you didn't, but wasn't really the thing that you wanted and needed fully, and you're now, okay.
Now it's the power.
Okay.
And see, you felt powerless as a child. Mm-hmm. Well, now you've got power. But what you don't realize is you're just repeating the trauma cycle out on many followers.
Yeah.
But you say you're there to help. You say you've got the answers. And this is another very classic thing is that you see, even if they started good, they stop doing for themselves the thing that they're teaching.
At some point.
At some point.
Because, listen, you watch these documentaries and oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes they'll kind of show you the beginning of things forming. And it's like, wow, like there's some really authentic, like good things happening.
Oh, yeah.
I watched Holy Hell, and the first half of it, I'm like, I want to be a part of this. and then I watched the second half. I'm like, oh, I understand it now, Uh-huh. But there's like, it all starts off good.
So often it starts out good, and that what you're doing is you have to do that. These people don't know they're doing this, but there's a program that is so innate in them that they just recreate it without even trying. So you make the things good. You give them just enough to be so hungry for more. You give them just enough. And then they'll do anything to get more of that thing.
But there's also an aspect at some point where there's a cutoff. Like, I will give to you, but then there's almost like a punitive or a shame that may not be overt at the beginning, but if you're not getting it, somehow, if the follower, the person, doesn't get the attention, doesn't from the guru, from the whatever, it's like this terrible, like, oh, I must be doing something wrong. I need to work harder. I need to, right? So there's this shift of like, hey, I'm here for you. I'm here with you, to now you are here for me. But would you even say the majority of gurus, in the way that we're talking about it, would be completely unaware of the programs, the problems, the issues? Do they just go and desensitize and get deeper and deeper and deeper into their narrative of, but I have what you need, and this is, or are they just trying to fool everyone?
I think you look at a lot, so Wild Wild Country, the Waco, David Koresh and the Waco situation, super interesting, that whole thing.
We just watched 7M,
the dance cult. Holy cow. Also the escaping twin flames.
That's what we were talking about at dinner the other night.
My heavens. So these people think that they're doing good things. Even, and I'll speak of my personal experience as well.
I want to get back to that.
That they really believe that what they're doing is for the good of their people. And they'll do horrific things, and they just get such I'm above. And listen, everyone's complicit in this.
Yeah.
It won't work. If they don't have loyal followers, they can't be a guru. So, and you can't be a guru without loyal followers. So this works.
And this is part of what I want to get into too. So we're looking at the profile of the things that drive and build people who put themselves in these positions of authority. But what is the profile? What is the thing that ends up leading someone to be more susceptible to that? Like, what is makes the fall? Because I think that if we only make it about this person, the authority,
they're bad,
right? Like the cult lead. And I think that I see that sometimes a little bit more of that angle taken. And when people come out of situations like that, there's so much of I was in a cult, or like that, and all the authority over. But that can, I think, leave us a little bit powerless if we don't understand. So what is it that I felt drawn to that I felt comfortable in that situation, that I felt safe, even if it wasn't safe, that there were signals that I missed. Like, what is it? Because if we understand it not just in a power hierarchy, because if we keep it that way, then we're keeping ourselves in that dynamic. And so that leaves us vulnerable. I think it's a lot more powerful if we can understand the dynamic, so that we have some sense of agency and we can actually change and be different, as opposed to keeping somebody in that position even after we're out of the visceral environment of them. If we hold them that way, then that leaves us susceptible. So what is it that can help build what makes somebody drawn into that and comfortable there? I've had experience with a few people coming out of clients coming out of those kinds of things, and I've noticed sometimes it's small. You were talking about it earlier, right, about the sense of authority over you from childhood. But can you just, because we've talked so much about the leader, can we talk about follower a little bit more? Again?
Yes. And to get into that, I'm going to talk about the leader a little bit more.
Okay.
Because something else I've noticed in many of these people is they do something to be a cult, like a good cult leader, to stay status, to be, and a guru. We'll even say guru, to be.
Guru, what does that mean?
It's like a guru is like the master of the thing.
Okay.
Like nobody knows better than him. Either
the top of the top.
Yeah.
What's different between that and an expert?
Because
expert gives information,
yes,
and people can do what they want with it. A guru gives information so that you will continue to come to them for more information and for a lifestyle.
Great distinction. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Continue.
So something that I noticed is that these people naturally have a skill that other people train for, and that's hypnosis. So there's many different hypnotists out there and hypnotherapy. I really believe hypnotists and hypnotherapists, completely different categories.
Ooh, okay.
So if we talk about like a hypnotist, like Darren Brown, let's say, you will see that they have a gift, a talent. Yes, people can train for this, but some people are born better tuned in. They listen better. It's just a skill they have. And they listen and it's almost like they're not doing this in any like nefarious way, usually in the beginning. They can figure out where you're lacking.
Okay.
Your soft spots.
They see the entry points into your most vulnerable places naturally, easily, without even trying. They'll listen to you talk and they'll notice things, and then they will take those things and utilize them, and in some ways manipulate, but not always negatively in the beginning, and get you to do things.
Can you give me an example of a way where that would be helpful? Like that would be good? Because if there's the potential for it to be, nefarious, there's got to be like biologically with us within a species, if we're working all together, there's got to be some way in which that could be positive,
beneficial.
Right.
Well, I think that's the whole study of hypnotherapy, where they realize that getting someone in this more subconscious state or this more trance state is when we're a little bit more programmable. Listen, we're all programmable. So this isn't like strange
programmed.
Yeah, we've all been programmed. Now, if I come to you, let's say you are skilled in hypnosis, and I come to you and I say, I want you to help me figure out the reason why I smoke. I don't actually smoke. I'm just saying,
okay, sure.
I want to stop smoking. And so if you are a skilled hypnotist, or hypnotherapist, you're probably going to help see.
Yeah.
But I'm asking for that help. I'm asking for you to help me stop this thing. And that's as far as you, if you're ethical in what you do, as far as you should go with it. So you're going to look for the ways that I do that. And you, because if you're really skilled at it, if you're natural at it, you're almost going to see it. And then you're going to help me to give me back the power. This is the most important part. You're going to give me back the power by communicating all of this to me.
Well, because you, in your own power, have come to me, asked for this, so then I have information that I see, and then I offer back to you, knowing that it's all I'm just sharing the information.
Yeah, you helped observe in the unique skills that you have, ways that I couldn't have maybe done that for myself, and you share that information back with me.
Okay.
And that's great. We do that to some degree.
Right.
In Mind Change. The difference is these people do it for their own good, for their own power. Remember, it's feeding into the power. So then that would be me sitting down with you, talking to you, but listening so deep that I see the places that you are lacking. I see your need. I feel your need. I see that what you really need is a father figure. Like you need a safe, doting, quiet father figure.
Would you say that in general, dangerous gurus, if we're gonna,
we're gonna label
will very much shift their power pull or their personality or whatever, depending on the person? So it's not like this person is this way with everyone, tells everyone the same way, this is how I'm going to give to you, but it shifts depending on how they recognize the needs in each individual.
100%.
Okay.
That's part of it. They chameleon their way into, they are what you need. And in doing that, you are hooked in a way that you didn't know you could be hooked into. So very often we are deeply pulled to these people and don't understand why.
Okay, you just said something that is different than what we were saying before, but I know they're connected. But before you were saying, I have something that you need. Just now you said, I am something that you need, right? So You need me versus you need the information. So it shifts from,
Okay.
hey, I have this thing, this can really help you, versus it shifts into, through the hypnosis, through everything else, like now it's not just this that you need me.
Okay, so let's take that. And because I've heard privately, we've spoken about recognizing that in someone, in an experience that you've had.
Okay, so yeah, I've not talked about this.
I know.
For many, 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 many years, but I've alluded to it at certain times. But in watching these documentaries, I have so much more compassion now.
Yeah.
It's easy to think these are just weak, dumb, like vulnerable people, and how could they possibly get wrapped up in this? I found myself deeply wrapped up in this.
Yeah.
And it makes complete sense given my history and everything too.
Mm-hmm.
My entry point was with chronic illness. So this was with a wellness guru. I had tried everything. Luckily, thankfully, there was no doctor that was like, I will save you. Because I probably would have been like, yes, save me. I definitely had a savior program, kind of, as I kept looking for the individual who would parent me, who would come in and like choose me. That's the program. Because I felt unchosen, right, by my mom, blah, blah, blah.
Were there aspects of anything that you went through religiously that touched on that at all for you?
Well, I think part of the way my entry point into religion was,
right,
I'm broken. I can't do this on my own. I'm lost. Everything I touch gets messed up. I must need a higher power to tell me all the ways I've messed things up.
I want to pause for a moment because we're getting into this and the story's going to launch in other spaces. But just for a small break, how has that shifted for you now? Like, what's your relationship with that sense of power and religiosity?
Like, why? Oh. Like, I don't want to be involved in a relationship that is so codependent, enmeshed in a yucky way. Well, I'm only this if you're this. And, I don't feel like, if we're talking from a religious construct, I don't feel like I was made that way. And that feels like a manipulative higher power. That feels like a control, something that I only get this if this. It's contractual.
Which, again, that you found yourself in that entry point with religion mirrors what you'd already known in childhood.
Oh, I did. I brought that to religion.
Yeah.
It's not that someone was like, yes, come in, woo, come and do this thing. That's what I brought to the table.
Yeah.
That's the filter that I used in seeing the religious construct that I came into.
Yeah.
So
you
mine.
needed someone to, or some organization or some whatever, to then sit in that path of, I'm broken and I need to be fixed. And so you
need to be saved.
I'm never going to be good enough.
Good enough. If you do this, then you can,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And so it just kind of formulated right in there.
And listen, in the particular religious organization I was involved in, I found my people, let's just say. So I found those people who wanted to exert power and control and basically like, you're not unless, and that's the way they felt. But I found those people. Somehow I missed all the people who loved God, and God felt like I missed them. I didn't talk to them. I thought they were wishy-washy grace and space folks. So, I didn't resonate with those people at all. I think they were there, didn't see them. So it would have been easy for me to look back and be like, no, this particular organization was very controlling and very this. There were plenty of people who weren't. I just found the ones that were and played with them.
And that's part of what I like being able to talk through and clock again. If we have something and we're walking through it, we keep attracting to that in a lot of different places. We're filtering through. We're kind of like zoned in on.
Yes. Well, and even getting back to this whole, we're not specifically talking about religion and religious cults here, but you earlier referenced when people like get out of the whatever, right? So it's interesting because we talked about how they're typically the kind of person who feels powerless, right? And then feels, I'm just going to use our lingo, victim, like a victim, whatever. And then they become the victim of the overpowering person, right? Guru or religious leader or whatever. But then if they happen to get out, they are still the victims, and then they find community, right? Community of like, yeah, and I can't believe all this happened, rather than, wow, I was feeling powerless and this is what I gave my power to, no more. Now it's like, I'm out and ultimately I'm still powerless, and can I surround myself with other people who feel the same way? And you're just in another community of, you're just in a different kind of cult in one sense.
You are, yeah.
And they might not actually be exerting power over you, but like internally you have all that power being exerted
You're
over
just
you
giving,
and ruling your
giving
life.
the power. Anything you hear, anything you know, oh yeah.
Well, and that leader, or that organization, still, it's still exerting power over you.
your life.
Yeah.
And you're just allowing it now. You're not even there anymore. And it's still like all your conversations and all the reason I am this way now is it's just giving them so much power.
Right.
So like you've done with your child, you have a really different experience with that now, like religiously.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Very different.
And so, but just tracking that. So there's where some of the history throughout your life has been, but then you were saying that as you've watched documentaries, a greater amount of compassion for people, following other people in.
Yeah. I think I recognize the desperation.
Okay.
And that's what's going to get us all in if you're desperate for purpose, you're desperate for belonging, you're desperate for healing, you're desperate for, whatever it is, your twin flame. With the dance people, you're desperate for to be seen and to have like money and followers. Really, that's how these
to be highlighted.
To be chosen.
That was part of what we had just gotten into. You were saying that the deep need to be chosen, and you'd had that, and so you find yourself in doing a lot of chronic illness, in spectacular form, and
I find this guy.
Wait. Can I tell you first,
yeah.
before you're doing that?
Yeah.
So you are, in one sense, desperately looking to outsource that power still, right? So you're on the chronic illness journey, and you're like, first you're giving it to doctors, and you're like, fix me, fix me, fix me. And then it's like to medicine. Oh, this will fix me, this will fix me. And even in like religious and church settings, it's like, well, if I just do this more, and if I just pray harder, or if I'm just a better, like you're outsourcing everything. And then when none of that was working, you started looking elsewhere.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, guilty. Definitely did that. And found this guy who was doing an offshoot of EFT, the emotional freedom technique, but he was doing an offshoot of it. And man, I will tell you, this is that thing that I can recognize now that I didn't then. I was immediately drawn.
Yeah.
Immediately drawn. I see now it was trauma calling. It was that same pattern calling, which I didn't know it then. So let's just say I got deeply, deeply wrapped into this system. Deeply. And the interesting thing was, and this is, listen, I'm speaking just from I came in, I was like, I'm gonna die, I'm desperate. I believed in the things that he was saying. And that's it. I believed in those things because there was some really great stuff that was being said. The primary thing was that I might have something to do with my condition. And for whatever reason, I was able to hear it that time when I hadn't been able to really hear that before. I think because I had a false sense of safety with this particular person.
Anything now clue you into what might have helped inform that sense of safety?
I think because I was about to get sucked in.
When you say sucked in, maybe you can elaborate on that. What does that mean to be like, you said I was like deeply, deeply in. What does that mean?
Well, darn, aren't you going to look for those people? I don't think he was doing this I don't think he was looking for me in particular. Like, I want to find the one who's going to be like all in on this. But I think we met a need in each other. He was looking for his superstar, like wonder case.
Like, because he's doing a healing thing.
He's doing a healing thing.
Where it's like, they get all better magic, like that kind of, okay.
And I was looking for my savior. We played really nice. Like it was a trauma bond, we were being attracted by our maladaptive programs. Neither of us knowing.
No, completely
Neither of
subconscious.
us knowing.
Okay.
And I dove in head first. So here's the interesting thing in looking back. If you were to hear me speak of that particular, I went for a week. If you were to hear me years ago to speak of that event, I was healed in that week. He worked on me once and everything was gone. Well, see, this is how we edit history for the narrative that we need. It's actually not true. Universally, that's not true. Because if you look back on that whole thing, the pain levels did decrease, but they were not by any means gone. Not gone at all.
Right.
There was, and it was really the work. The funny thing was the work I did on myself through the rest of that time that I was there that I think had the bigger impact, but I didn't have the eyes to see that.
You needed to place the power into something outside of you. That was your program. You couldn't hold the power yourself. It needed to, subconsciously, needed to be outsourced because you needed a savior.
I did, yeah, so it couldn't be me. I mean, because if it was me, then wait, I've been there all along. Then what am I doing this whole time?
Yeah, that's actually really vulnerable.
Very vulnerable. Again, guys, subconscious stuff.
Right.
Would never have known that then.
Yeah.
Now, with this whole thing and being wrapped up in what you're talking about, like going deep into it and all of that, it seems like originally it was just like, wow, this is incredible. But the more you went deep, the deeper you went, it was kind of similar to maybe religion, where it's like different religions are like, this is the way, like this, this is the doctrine, this is the whatever. It became, for this modality, like this is the only thing, right? And I'm giving it to you, and this is the key, this, which then became me.
Well, through the miraculous healing, which wasn't actually real.
But there were times where you gave some level of credit. So what did happen in your evaluation now?
Well, I was chosen. I was picked out of the audience. I was literally chosen.
You were literally chosen. It was picked out of the audience, and so it hit that deep.
It hit that thing.
Okay.
Do I think he was consciously aware of that? No. Do I think he was subconsciously looking for me energetically? 100%. But
then there's also some degree of, there's something in what he's doing that made some sort of traction point. Like there's some level of substance.
Yeah.
And I think in most things there are.
Yeah.
In most things there are. And I think that's why it's sometimes so hard to extricate yourself from it. And when you start to see the signs, that I started to see the signs very early on. I was like, I couldn't be comfortable in my body around this individual. I felt icky. And listen, I got into this situation because I wasn't in touch with my body. That's how I got into chronic illness in the first place. Right. So I just bowled it over.
You're feeling that
feeling.
There's like something's not right here, but you just ignored it.
Yeah.
Which is really what you'd been doing emotionally and physically for your whole life.
So often. And he just, there were a lot of things about the way he spoke, things he said, that I was just like, danger.
Can you tell us some of those?
Okay, so in the beginning, so here's the thing about this individual. He plays fairly safe in large groups of people. The closer in you get to him, the more he trusts you, the more he brings you into the inner circle, is when you start to see things like really crazy.
Okay, so on the outside, it's more just like he has this program that you join where he has some more understanding to help you heal.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he teaches you how to do it and whatever.
Okay.
So I was a part of this group of people.
So you first come in for a weekend?
I came in for a week-long training.
Okay.
And then you see he's got these kind of there's levels of followers, if you will. There's newbies like me. And then there's people who like groupies that come to a lot of things. And then you see there's these next level people. They've been around for a long time. They've been given some level of power.
And
Authority. They get pointed out by him. They get kind of highlighted as, these are my people. These are the people I trust.
And
These are the
helped.
people that I helped. Yes, good point. I invested in these people. I helped these
These are the people
get
that
well.
would share, up front and share how this individual changed their life.
Yeah.
It was really
Also,
it was really the individual when those things were spoken, rather than the method, the modality, the whatever. It was this person changed my life.
So everything's linked to him.
Yes, and within the first interview that I ever gave, because you constantly are giving interviews, you're constantly being put on camera to speak of your experience, and you're prompted, what do you think about this individual?
Oh, interesting.
How did this individual help you? What did this individual do for you? What did this guy do for you, right? So you're prompted to speak about this person in this way, and you watch the videos, and so you almost become trained in, this is the way I speak about this person.
And if you're asked to come and speak
share,
or share or whatever,
everyone does it in the same way. Oh, I'm so grateful for, blank. And he's done this for me, and he did this for me, and he's so wonderful, and he's so this, and he's so that, and there's this whole, it's almost like a script that you don't know that you're following until you're first prompted into it, and then you get the lay of the land, and you want to be one of the people, so you do the thing.
Yeah.
You say the thing. And for me, because I don't ever do anything halfway, whether it's illness or follow gurus, I was like,
The program of excellence.
chosen. Yeah, I do. I'm gonna be the one. I'm gonna heal it all. It's all gonna be gone.
Yeah.
And I did that. But I did that. Hear me say, yes, opened the door. Yes, this individual opened the door. And I will be forever grateful that he was the first entry point into some of this information, but I'll get into that in a second, because he laid ownership to this information. This is
the information of what he gives, of
what he gives, of how to heal.
Right.
Oh, okay.
His version of EFT, his and his alone. Okay. And that's very, very, this is mine. I figured this out. I came to this conclusion. This is my stuff. Yes, out there they say they do this, but what really, da-da-da-da-da. Very much like, I have the answers. I figured it out. It's my...
As opposed to, hey, I put a few things together. Here are all the sources, citing them, like it being a part of a broader picture. It's like I uniquely have figured this out.
When I first started coming around, he did do a little bit of that.
Okay.
Because Gary Craig is the one credited with EFT,
Yeah.
founding EFT. And this is where you start to hear the stories and you don't realize until later how much you're being roped into this whole thing, which is, I learned this from Gary Craig. I learned this from Richard Bandler. He's citing the main guys from the modalities that he's borrowing from. So he did do that. But the story becomes that he figured things out, tried to share with them, they wouldn't share, and so he had to do this breakout, and he
tried to help them enhance whatever they're doing, but they wouldn't listen, so therefore...
And now they're mad at him, and they are trying to say he stole their material.
Okay.
So this you hear quite early on.
Yeah.
So as a matter of, I'm giving credit, but the narrative that turns into is, but they don't associate with me because they think I'm taking their material, when actually it's not that way at all.
It's an indirect narrative of gaslighting, actually.
Yeah. Right. All these new fun words. But you just buy it hook, line, and sinker. You don't know. Like in the beginning, you don't know these things. You're just in it, right? You're so malleable. Like if you're desperate, you're ready to hear anything. And everything gets filtered. So my part of it was everything was being filtered through, you're the savior and you can help me and you're going to give me all these things and you're going to choose me and I'm going to be your star pupil and whatever. So I went ahead and did that whole thing. I became the star pupil. I became the story. And then there was interview with me after interview with me after interview with me. And I showed up for every one of those interviews. I had drank my own Kool-Aid. So the Kool-Aid was drank.
Yeah.
He poured it. I stirred it. We were both complicit.
Yeah.
Okay. We were both doing this for our own good. in our own ways. And then I spoke subconsciously, and I gave him all the credit. Give him all the credit for healing me, and this thing healing me, right? Because that's what you do.
Specifically, you'd say him and the thing.
I think I probably did, because some degree of me I did not like him very much. It was such a weird, bizarre balance. But then again, not. Because I had a history of spending time around men that didn't feel right, and I didn't leave. So that's mine too.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to say no. It's
part of your programming.
It was part of my programming. It wasn't modeled for me otherwise. So even though I noticed there was this like thing, I kept thinking it must be me. It can't be him. It must be me. But it was really, really visceral that I would be like, Arr. So here I get well and I heal from all these things, right? And not giving myself the credit for the work I did on me. And a lot of the things that I couldn't align with, some of the things that in his particular system weren't working for me. But see, I couldn't be the star pupil and have this had not worked for me, so I had to figure out how to make it work for me. This is somehow how Mind Change came to be, right? Was because I had to figure out a way for these things to work. His way wasn't working. So I had to figure out a way to make it work so that I could give back and say, no, but this worked for me, even though it wasn't working for me. Okay? So I was faking a lot of stuff about things, and I had done it for myself, and so it worked, but it was the work I did. It was what I had figured out. It was the things that I had done to make it work for me. And so, but then I gave the credit back.
Can I pause that for a moment? How is that different than the claim that he made, that he started in this system and then he innovated on it, he figured it out and...
No, but that happens.
Right.
That happens.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that narrative is necessarily wrong. That's how we learn. None of this information is new. None of anything out there is new.
Right.
It is all built upon information.
No, everything that technology or anything else is just evolutionary.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm not taking issue with that, because it's more the victim narrative about it.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for specifying.
That he was a victim, where I didn't feel like a victim. I felt actually quite empowered that I figured out how to make it work, even though his thing wouldn't work for me. I was like, yay, now I can say it worked. So it was really more for me to be able to do that. And so then I become the superstar, and then I'm highlighted and I'm pulled in to being around more and more and more and more. So then with that, I get pulled closer in and closer in and closer in to more of this inner circle. So then when you get into the inner circle a little bit more, you're realizing like, oh my gosh, everyone's sort of vying for like this kind of attention, this kind of role. There's a lot of infighting.
Who's going to sit on my left and right kind of thing?
Yeah. It was a little like bizarre, you know? So,
and are these all people who are just like doing the system? Are you guys working for him? Like, what is the dynamic?
So a couple of years in, okay, so here's like the legitimacy of my story is I did that for a year maybe, this whole thing, and I came back and I went.
You say did that?
I did his system.
You did his system, okay.
I worked with him, trained with him, learned, all of his stuff, right? And I did it with particular groups of people, and we did it together, and then some people, and it's just like this whole thing. Well, by the time I had done this, and I had done a lot of self-work at the time, I had gotten so much better. And by that time, I was like, I want to go live my life. So we jetted out to another country.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. We went and we're in another country. Now, with his system, you can come in and after a week, you're a practitioner. Like you can go in now. He says his thing is you can go out and charge people, $300 to $500 for a session. You've been there for a week and you can change anything. And I will tell you, oh my gosh, did I see this I was with this whole system when ethically this hit the fan. Like things fell apart.
Yeah.
It was a mess.
So much but even Like that doesn't give anybody. Let's even say, right, that it's like really legit working. That doesn't give somebody time to like be and heal their own. You can't help but be an unhealed healer if you're operating that way.
No, and it was very much like, and you can, and you should, and you will, and then you'll make raving fans, and there's this whole thing, and you'll make tons of money, and you know, and I, from my point of view, was like, I'm not here to do, I just want to be well.
Yeah.
So I had no intention of becoming a practitioner, but I did.
Yeah.
I ended up doing it because I was really wrapped up into this whole thing. So I do this whole thing, but then I go to South Africa.
So for a year, and then you move to another country, and then
I'm out of it. But in the meantime, I had so you know how like when you change, something works for you, you read the best book, you watch the best documentary, you get this thing and you feel a lot better, or you lose weight or whatever, and you want to share it with everybody. Mm-hmm. Okay, I was having such a hard time sharing this with people because I think there was just an incongruency. I wouldn't have been able to tell you then what I can say now, which is I was like, some part of this works, but some part of it doesn't, and something's missing. And I'm pretty sure this guy's like not necessarily a safe person.
We went to Africa and we were there, this is when, and you alluded to it, this is when a lot of the ethical stuff came out.
Yeah.
And you don't have to just speak about that, but in general, it seems like most cults, most guru stuff, at some point it's like good, and then when things start to tank, there usually is a moment, an era in that community or whatever, where stuff starts to come out. Like it does. Like something comes out, people come forward, I can't believe you did this, like whatever, and it gets stirred up. But it seems like in all of the different guru things out there, communities, cults, whatever, like it just keeps going.
Yeah, isn't that so interesting? It's because of the followers. It's because of the loyal followers at the time. I would have said I was one of them at this point. So when all of this stuff, okay, back really quick to, I didn't share it with many people.
Yeah.
But a few people kind of like majorly hounded me down about this.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, you can come and you can learn, but you have to stick really close to me. I was uber protective over these people. And for the
didn't always happen.
It didn't. Yeah. Because listen, we all come in for our particular things, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of us have certain programs. And that was mine too. That was a program too of like caretaking and keeping, but
protecting them from stepdad.
And there were a few people that went ahead and came in, and they got just from their particular program, they got sucked in.
Yeah.
And they were now part of this whole, they were on the trajectory of, becoming in the inner circle, superstar status for whatever. It was going to happen.
But a little different from you because they had starry eyes. They were like, all of that.
And this person uniquely, not as, still a little bit of the healed, all these things, but they were a mouthpiece. They were someone who shares with everybody all the time.
Someone that you brought in.
Someone that I brought in. And that served a purpose too. And this was me. And this is someone who will just get a little bit of information and then speak it as if it's the gospel, right? And so I
perpetuated that.
Really, I did. This was really me bringing this person in, and then I hopped off to another country.
Yeah.
So I stayed a little bit tied in because of this other person that had kind of come in under my guidance in the beginning, but then left to the own devices of this whole community, right? So one of the things that I noticed that bothered me a little bit was that the people, even in his most inner circle, still were they didn't trust him very much.
How so?
They would speak about him in really negative terms. They would fight with each other to some degree. It was like everyone knew to be really careful.
Like, I don't want to share all my information with him.
Oh, well, he was a information
secret
dealer. Like,
ooh, how so?
Well, okay, so there was this. Here's the other thing, you guys. You think these are all just like desperate people? There were brilliant, beautiful, talented women, mostly women.
Mostly women.
And there was a reason for that. Mostly women. The majority of the women that were initially in these kind of this top thing were brought in and they had been attracted to him sexually. And so there was that piece of it. And it was a lot, you could see it just really, there was a lot of father stuff happening there. Yeah. So they were there. That wasn't going to happen, but they were still craving that, I think, acceptance, that attention. And so these were really highly educated, wonderful, beautiful women who were in this kind of top tier around him. And then there was this one in particular who he would berate publicly, say horrible things about. This shows you how he was with. So this one person he would really highlight, and she's my best friend, my second right hand. Yeah. He would still kind of, but he took a lot of her information and made it his, which she would say later on, like he would steal all my ideas and say that they were his. They had this very, very bizarre relationship. It was super unhealthy, honestly.
Like unhealthy siblings.
Yes. And they would fight, like in front of people, in front of new people coming in, and they would fight, and it was really interesting. And I've always been interested in dynamics of people, so I really watched all of this, like, this is interesting. And then he had this other woman that was very, very well educated and did a lot of this stuff, and she was very good at what she did. And he would play this woman off this woman purposefully. He told me, I was behind the scenes one time, and this is when I was actually up quite higher in the whole realm of things. And he'd be like, we went to this particular thing. We were all there together. And he's like, watch this, says to me. And then says this, so-and-so was going to do this and had this whole plan, but I told her you're in charge. And then goes to this one, and he says, well, you were supposed to be in charge, but she said that she knew a better way, and so she's going to take over. And would just ignite these two people to fight against each other. And he would sit back and literally would snicker about it. And they would just, and they hated each other, and maybe that's a strong word, but there was tension there. I'm like, no, we're here to help people. Why are you doing that? Yeah. It was just, he played with people a lot. He also would tell, if we'd help a bunch of people and do all these things, then he'd come back and he'd make fun of them for things that they were doing. He'd be like, oh my gosh, I had this client and she was one. He would say what they were doing and he would tell, and it was such a breach of safety, and it was just like, but this is what was happening. There was also so many other really yucky things.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to go into so much detail, but do you want to share anything? Because whenever you watch these documentaries we're talking about, there usually is some sort of, there's manipulation, there's fear mongering, there's shame, there's, in one sense, like ousting, I don't know if that's the right word, but like, pushing people away so that they feel the need to come back. And then there's also a lot of times like abuse, whether it's, again, verbal abuse, sometimes physical abuse, sexual abuse. I don't know if you want to talk about any of those aspects of groups in general, gurus in general, or about your experience.
Well, I think from the standpoint of understanding that you can see a lot of red flags and still stick and still stay. And I did that. I saw red flag after red flag after red flag. Yeah. And this was my programming where I was like, okay, we moved back to the States, and then this individual asked me to get more involved. In fact, asked me to like take over. That was the word. It was like, I need you to partner with me, help me. And I was like, okay, I'm a quality assurance type of person. Yeah. I'm constantly like, if it can be better, it should be better. And this is how it should be better. And so I think, I wanted to make this thing better. I really did. I really, believed we could help people. And so I wanted to make it better.
Because there's still a degree to which you're crediting this for you getting well.
Yeah, for sure. I'm only crediting
You're
this.
only crediting this for how you're getting well.
At this
how
point.
you got well.
From this point.
To that degree.
Yeah. I had read so many other things and it led me to other things. It was the opening. It was the door.
Yeah.
But I started branching out because I was, when I got pulled into the inner circle, I started to realize like, this guy's got a lot of problems. He's like a lot of things. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. Hey guys, this has been great so far, but considering the time, we're gonna go ahead and split this up into 2 parts. So make sure to subscribe or keep an eye out for part 2 of this conversation because it's gonna get really good. So we'll see you next time.